Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? Welcome to this broadcast. And boy, I tell you what, you couldn't have had a more perfect timing to see what's going on in the market. There's an incredible shifting going on. It's like, what in the world? Which shoe's going to drop first? We have breaking news. General Electric has struggled all of a sudden with their stock prices falling drastically. But there's a lot of reasons behind that. It could be that the strong dollar is affecting the exports, and that could be a part of it. I mean, GE on the verge of bankruptcy if they're not careful, and there's some information even on that that's confusing. The stock market has been a roller coaster as of late, even today being down about 100 points. And at the end of the day, what about the oil prices crashing? What does this all mean? Even though the United States economy is roaring, more people are working now than ever, lowest unemployment in like 50 years. I mean, but the housing market's soft. So let's get an expert in here is what I'm trying to say. We need to get Bob Kudla in here from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's Bob Kudla. He's with us today. And Bob, help me understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's like a tale of two worlds here, Paul. And we talked about this for the last year. There's a shift from Wall Street to Main Street happening, and people are working, the tariffs are working, the jobs that are coming back on shore, and the oil prices falling is a good thing and a bad thing. It's great for you and I, that consume oil. The oil patch may struggle a little bit, but another good guy here too is that, look, it tamps down our economic competitors that charge mischief around the world, like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia. So, these things aren't all bad, but they're a little scary. And the thing that worries me the most is why it's happening. Is that we have essentially one guy and one entity that is accountable to nobody, at least nobody that we know, that is controlling how strong our dollar is and the level of interest people pay. And that's Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. And it's now causing big issues with some of our biggest companies because, as you stated in your opening monologue, is that a strong dollar makes our exports too expensive. It also does not allow them to offer what's called trade financing, to help people pay for these big ticket items. And then also with higher interest rates, it's getting more and more difficult for these companies that levered up because the Fed told them to. When they lowered interest rates too far, they can't pay the interest charges. So it's a point where they're pushing things too hard, and they do this every time, Paul. I don't know why these people have any credibility whatsoever.
Now, we're dealing with Jerome Powell, and he is the Fed chairman, and it's like he's, in my opinion, he's way too aggressive. He's raising interest rates. He's not really consulting that close with the president. He doesn't have to. I understand that. But at the same time, wouldn't you want to? I mean, the economy's roaring. People are working. Jobs, manufacturing jobs coming back like crazy. So help us understand, why in the world did General Electric get in this condition? That's one thing I know everybody wants to know, because everybody knows GE. I mean, they've been around forever. And then oil prices are crashing. Isn't that a good thing? I mean, that means cheaper fuel oil for the winter and cheaper gas for our tanks. Help us understand this one.
Well, let's talk GE. GE got caught up in the stock buyback game. So their businesses weren't growing like like some of the newfangled FANG stocks, like Facebook and Apple, but there was a lot of pressure on them to have their stock prices rise so they could be competitive in the marketplace. So what they did was they started buying back their shares, but they weren't generating enough cash. So what they did was they borrowed to do that because it made sense financially, because interest rates were so low. Then in 2016, as you know, once Trump was elected, the Federal Reserve has gone on this, I think there are 8 interest rate increases they've done. And so it's costing them more and more and more to service their debt. At the same time, the dollar is stronger because our interest rates are so high, and we're cutting off their markets. So that's GE's problem, but GE's not alone. IBM has the same problem, and just about any other big multinational company that produces here but exports out is in the same boat, and they've all borrowed money, Paul. It was one of the things, I don't know if you remember when Citibank, the CEO, said in 2008, hey, we had to dance until the music stopped. Well, these guys are in the same boat. If they didn't do it, that CEO would have gone fired. So he's sitting saying to himself, hey, you know what? I'll do what everybody else does. And so that way, when things bad happen, I can say, look, everybody else has the same problem. Well, that's the trap they put themselves in. But Jerome Powell did not have to set this trap up for the people. He could have easily stopped this whole stock buyback charade with regulatory actions. He could have told them that they couldn't borrow the money. He could have told the banks do not lend for this activity. But no, what he did was he not only raised interest rates, he's pulling money back out of the system. So he's hurting everybody. Anybody that has a home equity line of credit, anybody has a credit card. So what's happening now is they can't sell cars. Real estate's too expensive because people can't afford the mortgage. Yada, yada, yada. And so they took a sledgehammer to a surgery. And so that's what's happening there. Oil is a different animal in and of itself. Oil is the most corrupt market out there, Paul, because the players are very, very opaque. A lot of the action happens in London, and so they have a lot of people, the producers control the market. So it's always in their best interest to try to drive price up as high as they possibly can. What's killing them now is the United States is now the #1 producer of oil in the world. I don't think people know that. We just overtook Russia. We overtook Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And here's the thing that really blows people away is that when this phenomenon was first happening, they said, oh, America is very high-cost producers. Well, a little American ingenuity is that we're one of the lowest-cost producers. The only people that can produce oil more cheaply than we can is Saudi Arabia. But we can produce oil profitably in our oil fields at around $40 a barrel. The Saudis can do it less than 20, but they have a different problem. They need like $100 barrel to fund all their activities, whereas for us it's privately held, and the producers will wink in and wink out as they need to. But what's driving the price down really far, this happened in 2015 too, Paul, is that because there's a thing called a futures contract. So if you and I owned an oil field and we knew we were going to produce so much oil in 2 months, and the price of oil was $70, we're like, hey, I want to make sure I can get $70 for my oil. So what you do is you could sell your oil at that price 2 months into the future if it was at $70. So you don't care now what happens to the price of oil other than it going higher, and then you miss out on that upside. But as oil prices start to fall, other producers say, hey, I better lock in my price too. So they start selling in the futures market. And it becomes like a snowball going down a mountain and becomes an avalanche. And that's what's happening now. So all these oil producers are protecting their production. And then the banks are like, hey, I lent these oil producers money. I better protect my collateral. So they start shorting oil. So this thing may not end, Paul, until we get oil back into the 30s again. So, don't be surprised if oil falls in half once again before this is over, because that's what happened in 2015. By the time 2016 rolled around, oil's at $29 a barrel, and that can happen again. And our producers will be just fine. It will just look really, really scary in the outside world. But hey, you'll be getting gasoline at less than $2 a gallon unless you live in California.
And that really does fuel the American economy if price, unbelievable. So if the guys
massive tax cut.
Yeah, massive tax cut, and if the guys in Houston and down in Louisiana, if these guys are able to produce this crude oil and be profitable at a low enough numbers, and then sell it off at a high enough price futures. And if it's got a lot of people working, plus if the price of gas is low at the tanks, at the pumps, then all of a sudden you have a fueling economy. But it may not go well for everybody else, like you said. I mean, the other European and the Russians and other people out there may be struggling. This is a big deal, folks. The price of oil can swing an economy. It's like a speedboat with the Titanic. I mean, if you can get the price of oil regulated just perfect. And I think Trump, believe it or not, understands he has to keep that price of oil down. He's working close with the Saudis. He knows they want it up. He wants it down. They're trying to find that middle ground. And then he's trying to squeeze the Iranians so that the Saudis can get to produce more oil. I mean, that's kind of what's going on, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. And don't be so sure that the Saudis don't want low oil prices too. It takes out other competitors long term.
I see.
But here's the other thing. They're trying to show the Federal Reserve, hey, there's no inflation. You don't have to keep raising interest rates. If the price of energy starts showing up at the PPI and the CPI as negative numbers, there's no inflation. The only inflation I see in my personal life is in healthcare.
Oh, that's out of control.
Everything else is the same. So I don't know what fantasy this guy is living in, but he's just trying to support the banks, because what other people don't realize, when he raises the interest rates, he's still letting the banks borrow at the old rates. So They get a spread. And that spread, that difference, comes out of the United States Treasury. That was our profit that the Federal Reserve is handing to the member banks. And you got to remember, half the member banks are foreign, Paul. So, basically when he does this, he's subsidizing Deutsche Bank and the banks in England, the banks in France. So,
he's keeping those guys alive.
Yeah, if this ever got out to the light of day, I don't think these people could live in their country anymore. They would be chased away.
In other words, Jerome Powell is keeping Deutsche Bank and some of these other banks that are struggling in Germany and in the European Union and even in England to some degree. I mean, he's helped keeping them alive by using the profits from the American market. Folks, this is Bob Kudla from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Look, you need to go to his website, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can also pick up the phone and call him at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. And if if the phone is busy, which it probably is, as many people are they're absolutely beating down his door for information because he is so good at the info, you could send him an email simply at info@tradegenius.co. That's info@tradegenius.co. And Bob will help you, and he's got a lot of great products over there. We'll talk about those in a moment. So you're not a big fan of Jerome Powell, I can hear.
I'm a big fan of the Federal Reserve. I mean, he's just the face. I just don't like the fact that they claim that they're not political, but they're overtly political. And Janet Yellen and Bernanke before him, they made sure that there was no friction for the progressive left. But as soon as a populist gets in power, they're trying to crush him. Yeah. And so, that's what I don't like. Just look, in this day and age, Paul, you don't need anybody in there. A computer algorithm could determine whether or not interest rates should be raised.
Wow.
And that's only behind the scenes. What people don't realize is they're cutting back deals all day long. We just can't audit it. We don't know what swap lines are giving these different banks to make sure they don't go out of business, and what sweetheart deals are getting on rates. They keep all that away from our view, by saying the sanctity of the banking system. So it's absolutely a major fraud. And so, when these people look at you in the straight face and say Trump shouldn't get political, well, absolutely, he runs the country. He's constitutionally allowed to actually print currency. So I think if he keeps pushing on this, I think, Paul, you'll see Trump just keep ratcheting up the rhetoric. And if one of these big companies goes bankrupt, that because of the strong dollar and interest rates, it's Katie bar the door for the Federal Reserve. So I think they're going to relent before that happens.
That's amazing. That's incredible information. Federal Reserve has always been a problem, since 1913, and here we are, and I think we're tired of the big bankers running us. And Trump's trying to put the squeeze on. He's trying to balance the power. Actually, he's really trying to balance the power. The euro, it's wow. What's happened to the euro? Macron's talking a lot of smack over there in France, but the globalist economy they're suffering, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Europe's not going to survive. Italy is now playing a game of chicken with them. They're basically saying, "Hey, we're just going to do our budget," and the European Union said, "No, you can't." Italy says, "We're going to do our budget. We're not Greece, So you do what you think you need to do, and we'll do what we think we need to do." And so that's causing a lot of heartburn over there. And I don't know how they avoided it in 2008, but the European Central Bank has taken on so much debt that it's bigger than the countries. And Japan, for the first time, their central bank owns more assets than the GDP of their country. See, Paul, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you'd say this is stealth communism. These central banks, the bankers will now own all the assets in the world. Think about that for a second.
What?
There's probably maybe 100,000 preferred shareholders of all these banks who own the central bank, who then will own all the assets in the world. Because, when they foreclose on these companies, they get to own the assets.
Right.
And they use fake money to buy them in the first place. So, so it's like stealth communism. And we're heading down that path like a freight train on fire.
Okay, Bob, so to help us out here, what should people do? Where do they go? Do they go to the stock market? Is there certain stocks that make sense? Do they look to precious metals, or maybe some other avenue, maybe even a different currency like crypto? Where's you're thinking people should look at to get through this winter? Where should their investments be?
Yeah, so what's working is, look, the depth of cryptocurrencies has been overstated, and ever since the end of August, it stopped going down, and it's trading in a really nice range. So, we're continuously pulling out profitable trades for people there. And at some point, cryptocurrency is going to resume its uptrend because it's really a protection against bad governance. The precious metals, they're fine too, because at some point, all the countries around the world are going to have to print currency like mad to avoid this deflation that we're talking about. But here's another one that people don't realize. It's kind of under the covers here a little bit, Paul. India and China are building 150 new nuclear power plants.
What?
And there's not enough uranium.
No.
And this is multiple billion-dollar projects. Okay, so they have to fuel them. So the uranium producers are starting to gear up, but prices are moving higher. So we've been trading in the uranium space, and that's a 2 or 3 year thing, regardless of what the market does. And remember we talked about all these resets earlier in the year. Well, another reset is going to be, we're going to move from oil-based economies to more of what I call electric-based economies. That's hydrogen, natural gas, solar, wind, but also nuclear. And so anything that touches this new economy is going to do fine. Cobalt, copper, silver, gold, and uranium. So this is where we're spending our time. This is where we have our algorithms looking for buy signals and sell signals. And I showed you a chart of just how even things are just moving up and down, how you can just quickly extract 2, 3, 5, 10% moves over a couple weeks over and over and over again. And that's what we're doing.
Brock, show him some of the specials he's got going over there, and he's got some of the charts over there at the website at TradeGeniusAcademy.com, and you'll see there he has a November special right there with the annual cryptocurrency and the binary option buy-sell signal service. it's got a chat room access as well. So there you get to communicate with others that are in this, and look also the cryptocurrency trade. He's running this November special here. It gives you a 30-minute lesson as well. Bob really knows what he's doing, folks, and he's helped a lot of folks do well in the market, whether it be stock market, cryptocurrencies, or precious metals, including, you're saying uranium. When I heard you say 150 brand new nuclear plants between India and somebody, I mean, in China, I mean, so where's all this uranium going to come from? I mean, we sold a bunch. Didn't Hillary sell a bunch of uranium to Canada and it got to Russia? I mean, where's all the uranium coming from?
Yeah, I guess some of it's going to come from Russia, but Canada and Kazakhstan, the United States and China are big producers of uranium. It's just that they've shut the mines down, and now it's going to take a while for the mines to get reinvigorated. In the meantime, prices are going to move up higher, and so we follow 4 or 5 of the uranium plays, and when our algorithm gives us a buy signal, we pass it on. When it gives a sell signal, we pass that on too, and you know, you're going to make money most of the time on each one of these trades.
Is quantum easing? They've been cutting back. I mean, during the Obama years, it was massive printing of money as fast as the presses could run. What about now? I mean, what are we doing now? Is it we're slowing back? Is Trump wanting to cut back on the printing of money?
Oh, it's actually called quantitative tightening, and that's Jerome Powell. That's his area of action. So he's been pulling money out of the banking system every month for the last 2 years. So, and he shows no sign of quitting, and that's what's causing the stock market to start getting all wiggly, because there's just not as much cash, what they call liquidity, in the system, and so people have to start selling to be able to buy back the assets that they lent to the Fed when the Fed gave them the cash at that low cost. So that's all unwinding too, Paul. So that's going to cause the stock market in general, you know, some grief until they stop raising interest rates.
And so as we go forward now, let's look at the geopolitical arena. You know, here comes the sanctions on Iran. Iran does not like it. But the president did give 8 waivers out. And so some of these countries are still going to get to do business with Iran. So was his sanctions overreaching or not enough in this climate we're in?
You know, I don't know, Paul. I'm kind of a, you know, mixed view on this, because, you know, I hate the regime in Iran. But look, the British caused this problem by trying to steal their oil 100 years ago, and you know, and we went ahead and supported some of the wrong people there too. So I understand the anger, and I'm not too sure I'm so happy about supporting the Sunni regime that killed 4,000 of our people against the Iranians, who may say death to America, but they never killed any Americans. You know, really, you know, and some of their proxies did, you know, in Lebanon, but you know, it's not like the Saudis. So you know, I'm a mixed bag. I wish we would not be so involved in some of these foreign adventures anymore. And look, and I'm a Marine Corps officer, and I was in the Marine Corps when the barracks blew up. So you know, if anybody should be mad at the Iranians, I could be. But you know, it's because we stick our fingers in everything. You know, and I'm more of an isolationist guy, so I might be the wrong guy to ask, Paul.
Well, that's what Trump is as well. I mean, basically, he's an isolationist. He definitely don't want to be a globalist, and he has been saying it. He wants to get out of the Middle East, get out of the Middle East. Yet he wants to protect Israel, and at the same time, he wants to protect America's interests in the global markets. And that's why he's raising these tariffs on China. Let's be honest. I mean, the tariffs working. I mean, everybody was wringing their hands and, you know, and sweating bullets, but the tariffs are working, aren't they, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for it. I mean, you know, China is basically one big corporation. And so we're not dealing with, you know, a nation of businesses. We're dealing with one business, China Inc. And so, and they've been robbing us blind. I think President Trump said it well. He said, "Look, if we if we force them to stop stealing our intellectual property, they're a second-rate country in 10 years, and they can't, and this misnomer about a trade war, there's no trade war. We provide them, everything we provide them they need. Everything they provide us, we want. So we could shut them off tomorrow, Paul, and have very little consequence. If we shut them off tomorrow, there's a new regime in China in 5 years. So there's no war. So Trump can play this out as long as he wants and just keep ratcheting up the rhetoric and keep ratcheting up the tariffs, and China's dead meat. So, and the Chinese know it, and everybody knows it. It's just the globalists are screaming because they have investments that are going to go under, and their whole interconnected nirvana world that they try to create with if we can box America in with a strong China, with a strong Europe, saddle them with these stupid treaties, we can really run the world. And they're all blowing up on them, and China is one of them. I mean, look, the Chinese are they're in debt 335% of their GDP, Paul, hopelessly unable to pay any of their bills. So there's a reason why they let their crypto start trading again. They have to give their people an opportunity to be able to generate wealth because their real estate market is out of reach and is collapsing, and their people have no other way other than buying gold and silver to maintain wealth. And there's no social safety net in China, Paul. And they're getting older faster than we are. So China's a paper tiger. It's just a big paper tiger, and it has enough money to squawk for a while. But Trump has them boxed in. Let it play out over the next couple of years. We're going to get whatever we want out of that, and that's going to support our economy as we start going into this more weakness period of our economy in the next 12 to 18 months.
That leads us to this, folks. This is TradeGeniusAcademy.com, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can always call Bob on the phone, call his staff, 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. You got questions, go to his website, though, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. He's got some great November specials, especially through the 15th. He's got a special right now that you really need to get in on that, and to help you understand what's going on for those of you who like to operate in the market. All right, Bob, here's the question I don't want to ask. Hillary, 2020, what does that mean? Let's just throw this out. What if Trump loses? I hate to even say it. Let's just say Trump loses in 2020 to, yes, Hillary Clinton. What is her philosophy? I know she was always a hawk in the past as far as militarily, but what is her financial philosophy? What does that mean for the American economy?
Well, look, she's a kleptocrat. I mean, she's shown that. She sold access at the State Department. She was in cahoots with her husband and the foundation, and with Haiti and with Russia. So it'll all be about how they can reinvigorate their own personal wealth or create this unaccountable bureaucracy that Trump's trying to slash through right now. But look, Hillary's, from all appearances, is ill. So 2 more years from now, almost 3 till she would be able to be inaugurated. That's a lifetime. For somebody at that age, as once you get to a certain age, you don't. It's not like going from 50 to 60. When you go from 70 to 80, it's a faster slide. So she doesn't even have the endurance today, Paul. She needs to be helped up. Looks like she has some sort of brace. So I'm not worried about Hillary.
Okay, then let's throw this out. That's good. I'm glad to hear your analogy of that. But that means somebody's got to be the face of this Democratic Party. And you have to wonder, with all of the entanglements that Trump's been having to unwind, and to build a strong economy and to rebuild the military, and he's not too shy to say that, how that under the Obama administration, they literally left our military twisting in the wind. Who in the world is the face of the Democratic Party? I mean, you can't go back to Bernie, can you? I mean, another weekend with Bernie?
No, they're gonna look. The millennials now. There are more millennials than baby boomers now. So I think the Democratic Party is going to probably have a little bit of a civil war, their primary between young and old, and I think somebody younger is going to come out from it, and they're going to be extremely activist and extremely socialistic, and so. You look at it, the young kids today are paying, and it's their own fault. I mean, look, kids are paying, when I was 20 or 30, I never worried about paying anything for health insurance. These kids are paying, half their income in health insurance, the other half in rent. And you have,
And school loans.
and so, as you know, as the Lord said, these are messes of our own making, Paul. And so the Republican Party and the conservative movement haven't addressed these things. And so we're allowing an evil alternative to take over because they don't care about those things either. They just have a better, brand than we do in that regard. And but they're going to ignore when they get in power and then pursue their globalist agenda again. So it's going to be somebody young. Look at the girl from Puerto Rico, the youngest congressperson. Look at the Sinema lady from Arizona who said the Taliban is good. Or misunderstood. I mean, these are the kind of crazies that are the new fresh face of the the Democratic Party, and that's what we're going to be dealing with in 2020. Hillary's gone. I wouldn't worry about Hillary or Biden or Bernie.
All right, that's Bob Kudla, folks. And again, get the advice from him. He knows what he's doing as far as the market's concerned, and the precious metals and the cryptocurrencies and all the stuff's going on. Certainly, he's on top of it. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can call him also at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. And if that phone is busy, email him at info@tradegenius.co. That's info@tradegenius.co. Bob, this has been a very interesting conversation and actually even a little bit entertaining. But the good news is, folks, that we have a strong economy and a strong dollar, and that's going on. And with the tariffs and with the tax cuts, that's kind of going in the right direction. Now, let's see if we can weather the storm of the debt at $22 trillion. And where do we go from here with some of the other policies the battles that's going to go on. But Bob, I want to thank you. I mean, this is a great analogy. What's your final thing to say? You got these specials. Tell folks again why they need to come to TradeGenius.com.
We'll help you make money nearly every day in the market, and we use proven techniques, and we created what we call algorithms to take the emotion out. And we know from our past experience that these signals work, and it's a nice anxiety way to trade and make money, and also just stay informed in what's going on. So, come join us. We're one of the good guys.
Yeah, and folks, they really are. And Bob's a really, I appreciate it. Christian company, good man. Had, sit down, had lunch with him, great conversation, and just good. You like it when you're working with somebody that's good, solid people, good people. And Bob Kudla and his organization is just that. So, Bob, thank you so much for being with us, and we appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, Paul, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Don't eat too much turkey, and I'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
God bless all of you. I'll see you, folks.